Well, Dr. Drew, we've unearthed some really troubling information here about the school, Leroy Middle Senior High School. There are 6 natural gas wells on the school grounds. This gas has been extracted using a technique called fracking, where a liquid with water and some potentially very dangerous chemicals is injected into the ground to release the gas. But we've obtained some documents that show us that last summer, a month and a half before the first girl became symptomatic, that they were cited for 2 of these wells spilling this liquid onto the ground, killing trees and vegetation around the area of these wellheads. This is right in the area where Bob Bocox and his team were trying to get soil samples, and it's where students every day play, do sports, practice their sports right there on school grounds, Dr. Drew.
All right, well, let's show you some shots of the playing field so we can localize this at the high school. I'm going to show you an aerial shot of the football and baseball fields in relation to the gas wells. You can see that right there. The report says the brine tank is leaking brine from openings. Brine is in the gravel around the well. The grass is not burned, but the trees next to the site are dead. That's what the report says. All right, well, here, let's take a closer look at the wells by those two high school playing fields. As you can see, dead trees, burned grass, and you can see the effects of at least the brine around the area. Jim, anything been done recently in regard to this leak?
Well, as you know, Dr. Drew, the school here has hired attorneys, and they won't let us speak directly to the school officials or go on to school grounds. But from an adjacent road, I can clearly see that at least the largest trees that are dead are still there. They look just like they do in that Google satellite photo. So we haven't gotten official word. I've been asking them for 24 hours to respond and tell us if and how they've mitigated these circumstances. No official response, but I can still clearly see those dead trees.
Now, you spoke to a few parents and their kids about the spill near the field. We're going to take a look at that in a second. But first, I want to go to Bob. Bob, I had understood these wells are not using fracking. I do not want to create a panic here about some wells near a high school that's allegedly using fracking. Aren't there wells at the site that leak brine? They use brine because that's a shallow well, and then there are nearby wells that use fracking. Is that not the case?
Well, we're not exactly sure because we haven't had the opportunity to discuss this with school officials. As Jim said, we're concerned about what's going on there. The chemicals or the brine that's used, brine in industry has been used as a code word for fracking fluid. They are indeed pumping at about 1 gallon a minute this fluid down into the well to cause the gas to be produced or to come up in the well. So frankly, we're not sure. What we've asked the school to produce is the material safety data sheet, referred to as an MSDS, to tell us exactly what's in that chemical mixture.
All right.
You recall that up until just this last year.
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Drew. Just up until this last year.
I don't want to start a big panic about this. The fact is, if we don't know this is fracking, I don't want to start going down this path and be accused of, just reporting something for the sake of reporting it. I want to know what's going on there before we start to make accusations or even to worry about what may go on. Apparently there is fracking, I'm being told, in one area, but I don't know that that's the stuff near the school, because what I've read about the stuff near the school is that it's a shallow well that pumps the gas directly up and the school uses it, and it's not using fracking. Jim, do you have any response to that?
Dr. Drew, let me tell you, I've obtained this big stack of documents with all of their permitting information, and I ran it by 2 noted experts from 2 universities, Cornell and the University of Nevada, today, and went through all the specifics with them. There is no doubt in their minds or in my mind that this is fracking going on here. Absolutely positive of that. And these experts said this is definitely troubling. Without taking those soil samples and really investigating what's coming out of the ground there, we can't indeed determine whether this is causing anything or putting students in danger. But it is definitely fracking and definitely of concern to these experts and to the parents that I've spoken to.
And Bob, do you think that's why you're being stonewalled at the school, or why they've hired attorneys?
Absolutely, I think that's one of the concerns. I mean, if you recall, I'm looking at the gas production wells as well as the fill that was used to fill the swamp in, as well as the stormwater system on the school. All of these things combined, and certainly if this turns out to be fracking chemicals, would be interrelated.
All right, now Jim, as I said, you spoke to some of the parents and kids about this possible spill and what's going on near the field. Let's take a look at that.
So on the property there's several natural gas wells right there on school property that feed natural gas right into the school that's used for heating and other things. What do you make of that?
It could be what's making them sick. I have no idea.
I only have a few friends left, and because like half the people think that I'm faking. I'm not faking. I couldn't fake something like this. It's too much of pain.
What do you think when you see those barrels and you see that that's a site 40 years later?
Somebody dropped the ball.
Well, we have more of that interview later in the show. Jim, were you surprised that the parents didn't know more about all this?
I figured that given these well inspection reports that cite them for having this overflow and this dead vegetation, I figured that that's something school officials would make parents aware of, and that they would keep them apprised of the steps they've taken to mitigate that and make everything right again. And they were absolutely clueless. No parents I've spoken to had any word from the school that there had been those violations. They were as shocked. They were very shocked. I was the first person to tell them about it.
And I think that's what we're sort of finding as a trend here of really good job by the teacher and the nurses, but the administration taking kind of a funny defensive posture all this. All right, we're going to keep this conversation going. Coming up, we're going to talk to a father who has a lot of concerns.